Welcome to the MAM Journals. I'm here today in Stafford at the Motorcycle Mechanics Classic Show, and I've never been before, but I saw what was coming up and I was interested to come along and experience it. The show itself is quite eclectic, is probably the right word. You can buy everything from what I would describe as shrapnel, but one man's shrapnel is another man's long lost part. Some pretty tatty bikes, need extensive work, some quite tiny bikes and some fantastic condition bikes which are absolutely pristine and superb examples of what they are. I'm actually, right now, this is the viewing area for the Bonhams auction, which is held at the show, and just been watching a few bikes go through auction, which I always find interesting to see what the prices are. And we've probably seen the star of the show go through, which was the Ducati 750 Supersport, what's known as a green frame. There were 401 made, and a lot of them got destroyed racing, so they're a very rare beast. And so that went through for £150,000 plus commission. So it's not my sort of bike in terms of aspirations to own it, because I mean the bike's not. It's now got into that category where it's collectors only, and the bikes don't actually get ridden. The bike hasn't been ridden for 20 years. I prefer bikes which I can ride and enjoy, look after, and hopefully don't lose me too much money, or maybe even every now and again I'll get lucky and get a bit of appreciation. One of the bikes that I've liked so far, because when I come to a show, what I tend to do is, I suspect what many of us do, I wander around and pick the bikes that I like and try and think which of the 3 or 4 bikes will I most like in my garage. And the first one I'm going to do of that is this bike that's just gone through auction. When the Ducati 999 series came out, I've got to say, I think like most of us, we didn't really take to it after the beauty of the 916 series, and I've actually got, as some of you know, I've got a 996R in the garage at home. But over time, these bikes have really grown on me, and I certainly wouldn't mind having one of these in the garage, but I would want one that I could ride as well as look at. And as I say, this has gone through, and this went through at £11,000, which plus the 15 commission is 12,650, something like that. I think they're probably going to appreciate over time. It's difficult to know in the current market which way things are going, but I suspect at some point that'll probably be worth £15,000, maybe a bit more if you're doing it as an investment. Anybody who's watched my channel know that I don't really buy things as an investment. I buy things I like, and sometimes I get lucky, sometimes I don't. But that, of my few bikes that I'm going to select today, that's one of them, and at the end I'll tell you which of the 3 or 4 that we look at is the one that I would most like in my garage. Of course, motorcycle auctions, and I'm still here in the Bonhams section, are a mixture of the weird and wonderful, and some of the prices, I'll be honest, I don't understand, but it's always interesting to go along, and I do go to quite a lot just to see what prices are doing and what is sought after and what isn't. Just to give you examples of those, this is, if I can just find the right page in the catalogue, that's a 1958 Honda C100 Super Cub, and that obviously would be described as being in original condition with the right patina. Patina's either in keeping with the style and age or worn out, depending on how you look at it, and that bike went for £4,200 plus 15% commission. This one, which is the little Honda mini racing bike, they made them for a short period, and it's like a baby NSR really. That's probably circa 2004 bike, and that went for £3,500. Again, that was bid overseas. This bike over here was it's called a Gorilla. It's the bigger version of the monkey bike, and that one went for £3,000 plus commission. So quite interesting what Hondas are going for in the current market, and some even quite small bikes are attracting good prices. no classic show would be complete without, of course, some two-stroke Yamahas. I actually owned one of the 400s. Mine was the F version as a young man, and it's fabulous excitement from it. I have owned one subsequently, and it was about, I would say, half as fast as I remembered, but it's still a great, people say they're misspent youths, but on reflection, a well-spent youth on an RD 400. I never actually got round to owning one of these, the replacement, of course, which is the LC, the liquid-cooled version. But these are incredibly popular, and both bikes are increasing in value, and particularly for nice ones. So hard to get hold of at a sensible price for a nice condition one. I'm probably cured of two strokes, but you never know. The right opportunity comes along. Wouldn't be too bad a thing to have a nice one of these turning up in the garage. Always been a big fan of big Kawasaki's, and of course this is probably mid 90s, maybe 96, GPZ 900, and the obviously natural replacement for the Z1R and coffin-shaped Z1000s, and very topical with Top Gun re-arriving, and great to see them here at the show. 90s bikes, as I say, are now allowed to be in the classic show, and there's been some really good bikes being brought out. This is a lovely example. Still produces over 100 brake horsepower. Been recently on a dyno, so a bike you could actually still ride today and still have fun on. This, of course, is the predecessor to the GPZs that we've been looking at. Probably one of the last of them. Nice Z1000, and as you can see, the judges liked it as well. It was first for the 1980s bike. Absolutely fantastic condition, beautifully, I suspect, obviously restored. Well, I can't imagine it's been kept like that initially, but those the coffin-shaped tanks that I talked about earlier, great example, and fantastic muscle bikes. Bikes like the Kijiva Elephant actually became really popular following the explosion of interest in the Paris-Dakar style racing. And this and the Honda African Twin were probably the dominant bikes in the late 80s, early 90s. This is a 92 version, and as you can see, it's been very nicely restored, and as such that it's actually been picked up as highly commended by the judges, picking bikes of the years and generations. They are, like all of the bikes, pretty tall, but it's interesting being standing here. There's been a lot of interest in this bike. It is a particularly nice example, and for those of you that are tall enough to ride one, I suspect it's fun even today. We talked about the Kijiva earlier. Of course, the big bike in the 90s was this bike, the Africa Twin. I remember when they first came out, and they were available in Europe, but they weren't available in the UK. This is a really nice one. I think it's only done 1,000 miles since it's new, so quite remarkable to see that. And clearly it hasn't been across a desert, as some of them attempted to do, but great bikes and really symbolic of the time and type. I'm looking at here at a Triumph Daytona, and although I'll be honest, it's not my sort of bike. Just because it's not my sort of bike doesn't mean it's not a good one. This has got an unusual story in so much as just spoken to the owner of it. He bought it from new, and some of you experts on Triumphs will go, well, they didn't do them in those colours, they only did them in plain colours. I mean, he's told a fascinating story about how he saw one originally in Motorcycle Muse. It was tested in these colours. When they took it to one of the shows, they well, a lot of people saying, well, it looks like a GSX sort of colour scheme. So they decided when they went into production that they were only going to go plain colours. And he said, well, if you're going to go plain colours, I'll cancel my order. So this is the only one that will be as supplied by Triumph in this colour scheme. Interesting bike. Right, so I'm here looking at a few Hondas now, and it's great to see in these classic shows you're beginning to see 90s bikes come through, although in fairness some of them are 80s as well. The ones I've got here, that's and probably a 94 I would think, Urban Tiger, Fireblade. This is a bike I've seen a few times. I've seen these a few times static. I've never seen one actually moving. But it's the NR, which has got the oval pistons, which was, of course, a technological development, but proved to be a blind avenue, and was soon abandoned. But those bikes are exceptionally valuable. This bike was the replacement for the RC30 World Superbikes. It was a homologation bike, and John Korzeniowski is actually here today, and he was the only person to actually win the championship on the RC45, so I think they'd taken the opportunity to probably get his signature on the tank there while it was here. And they didn't make many of them. They were, from memory, £17,800 when they came out new, and if you were lucky enough to be allowed to buy one, as the dealers sort of very carefully decided whether you were a genuine buyer or not. But certainly a collector's bike, and an incredible performance bike. I think they got about 150 horsepower out of them with a full factory trim on them, but they came out the factory out in terms of when you bought them, they were about 120 brake horsepower. So an impressive bike in the time, and a bike that eventually, after several years, managed to win the World Superbike Championship for Honda. And just to prove that the Honda NR750 is common as buses, here's another one in fantastic condition. As I say, they were oval pistons, a slightly unusual design, didn't keep them for long, and I think all of them are collector's bikes now. I'll be amazed if anybody actually rides one, but great to see them. 2 on a day, got to be a record. Okay. So, how have I found the show? Well, it's been an interesting show, and for £14 entry, and well, the burgers were more for the pair of us, so it's been a cheap day out. It's been very interesting. I've seen some great bikes, and we watched some motorcycles displayed behind me, doing things that we all think we used to do when we were younger, but you watched it for about 2 minutes and realised you never actually did anything like that. And I've seen some great bikes. Which bike would I take away? Well, quite difficult. I mean, I do like the two-stroke Yamahas, and I enjoyed seeing those. There were some great big Kawasaki's, which I've always been a big fan of. I think probably in third for me was the Honda Africa Twin, just because it was such a nice example with low mileage. Second bike, I'm going to go for the RC45, and the reason it's second, not first, is it's probably not a bike you could really enjoy on the road anymore, and I suspect a combination of its value and its characteristics. But I do like homologation bikes, and I've always been attracted to them, and anybody who's watched my channel know that I've got a few in the garage. But for me, the bike that I'd probably most like to own was that original 999R that I saw. It's very nice condition, and a bike you could probably ride today, still enjoy, and may appreciate in value. So yeah, a good day out. I'd recommend it to anybody if you're thinking about doing it next year. Lots to see, lots to do, and gradually the bikes are becoming more and more modern classics, and so we can see bikes that we used to admire in our youth. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the MAM Muse, and as always, ride safe, stay well.